Please welcome Becky Caperni, a powerhouse executive assistant, mentor, and leader of the EA revolution. With over 20 years supporting top executives at companies like Salesforce, Twitter, and Goldman Sachs, Becky is on a mission to help EAs recognize their full potential and become the CEOs of their own lives. She's the author of The Unstoppable EA and founder of the EA Social Club, a dynamic community transforming how EAs see themselves and their careers. In this bold and deeply personal session, Becky joins Lucy Brazier to share how authenticity, resilience, and radical self-worth can fuel both personal growth and professional success. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and reminded of your unstoppable value.
Becky, how wonderful to see you. I'm so pleased we finally meet. This is the first time that we've met.
I know. I mean, I've talked to you, we've emailed, but this is the first time that we've actually seen each other face to face. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. And I've read the book, of course, but it's not the same as talking to somebody. And just with 5 minutes before we started recording, the energy is palpable. So I'm really looking forward to this interview.
Me too. Me too.
Excellent. So listen, I wanted to start off asking you about the book because I know that you have had such incredible feedback to it and it's really different to anything else that is out there. Will you talk to me a little bit about why you wrote it in the first place?
Yeah. So generally, I have been trying to really lead the way on executive assistants feeling that they can show up as themselves, show up authentically, bring them their personality and their life into the role. So instead of, thinking of all the ways that we are unempowered and that we are not able to show up, really embracing what we are able to control and what we can bring. So I just, through my journey, the past 25 years and the different experiences that I've been through, including addiction, and the way that I've had to learn to show up for myself, reframe my thoughts, my beliefs, and my core values, I figured that it would be an excellent opportunity to showcase to people everything that I've learned over the last several years. And that's literally why I did it. I did it because I feel like I've learned everything the hard way. I have gone through all of the processes. I have, supported all of the people, the good people, the bad people, the in between people. And I feel that it's important to really tell it like it is. And I feel a lot of people weren't getting that information.
And I think you're very much a new generation of assistants. It's something I'm seeing more and more. It was very much for so long about assistants being kept in their place and doing as they were told and being very reactive. And certainly that isn't the way it is anymore. Talk to me about what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I do see it being the same. I think what gives me a little bit of an advantage is that I have been doing this for 25 years. I have dealt with extreme cases, and more recently, I've dealt with the more extreme cases. And so, in getting more leveled support recently and switching executives and going to a more normal type of environment, I felt that I've been able to raise my voice. And I think it gets really difficult because depending upon who you're supporting, I mean, it is definitely frowned upon to raise your voice. I mean, I've been called into HR. I have people monitoring my posts. It's like you don't just put your voice out there and then people are okay with it. There has definitely been issues that have come up because I am using my voice. It is not encouraged, but I have finally been able to do that. And I've been doing it for so long that it's given me the confidence to be able to finally raise my voice. So I think that, we are very lucky that there are newer generations that are coming out that are empowering us, that are making us feel like we can show up differently. But it also is about us healing and working through the process to be able to raise our own voices and empower ourselves.
So, was there a pivotal moment in your career where you thought, that changes everything? I need to really start speaking up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I would say that I really started speaking up probably about 3 years ago. It really started organically. I had finally found a job. I had a really, really difficult 2022. Was at 5 different jobs. I didn't know if this was the career for me anymore. I had been doing it for 20 years. I felt like such an imposter at that moment. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm never going to be good at this job, even though I've been doing it for so long. And it was just a really bad year. And then finally, I landed in a comfortable place again. And I realized, it really is just a process. And it's all about who you're going to match with, where you're going to find yourself. Not everywhere that you're going is going to work out perfectly. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. And so, since I had found a job, I started telling everybody else about the jobs that I was seeing. And so that started creating community because people were following me to find out which jobs I was posting about. But that gave me a little leverage to start making like giving some feedback and to start looping in about ideas about certain things, and people were responsive. And so based upon getting those responses, then I just leaned in a little more, and then I kind of took over this role, and I started realizing that I was raising my voice in different ways that other people didn't feel that they were able to, whether that be because of their experience, the circumstances they have been through, being a part of tech and San Francisco. It's been such a volatile experience. And so I feel I've been able to speak to things a bit differently than people who don't live in this climate, or where I'm at. And so I just really wanted to feel like people were getting information that they don't feel as accessible. I would say that when I left my last executive, and so now I'm in a completely different position at Salesforce, and I support 2 new people, which completely changed my day to day. Okay. So like I no longer am working overtime the way that I used to. I feel more empowered in the place that I'm in. I'm treated with respect and with dignity. And so it's given me the ability to raise my voice even more. So I think it also depends on where you're at and what the expectations are that are placed upon you.
Different at tech companies like Salesforce and Twitter, where I know you were before,
Yeah.
because the way in which people are encouraged to think is very much thinking outside of the box, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes. Yes. I mean, of course. But at the same time, there's never a company. I have never experienced a company who is happy that you're raising your voice. Now, I feel that they should, because I'm never going to talk bad about Salesforce. That's my company. I work there. I would never, ever publicly say something negative about Salesforce and put my job in jeopardy. So I am automatically like, promoting Salesforce, and people will want to work there because of how much passion I bring to my job, which happens to be at Salesforce. So I would think that they would embrace it, but they don't. And when I first started raising my voice, I first started getting called into HR. Every single thing that I do, including the book, my podcast, the EA Social Club, the speaking gigs and engagements that I have this year, I need to get OBAs for, and that's outside business activity. So all of that is monitored, and people just need to be careful.
Mm. Do you raise your voice within the business as well? I mean, are you speaking up for the things that you are seeing where you're thinking maybe it could be done differently?
And are you saying that, am I doing that at Salesforce?
Yes.
No, no, not necessarily. So when I've been called into HR, I do at that moment talk about EAs and what I'm doing and my passion behind it and what's missing. They have asked me for advice. They have gotten concerned by some of my posts. They've asked me for advice. They've promised to move, the needle forward, and nothing happens. Um, I think that it's really difficult within companies. You're looking at a company that has 90,000 employees. We don't outsource events. We don't outsource anything. Everything is done within the company. So it's difficult for me to raise my voice for us inside. That is my job. I need the paycheck. I need a place to work. And so I do automatically have those limitations. So for example, we have, admin Slack channels, like very powerful admin Slack channels. I never under any circumstance post in there about anything that I have going on. So I would never post that I'm doing a panel. I would never post that I'm on a panel, that my book came out. I mean, I keep that completely separate.
Mm. So interesting. I know that so much of what you talk about is authenticity. So how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I would say that in the 25 years that I've been working, there are certain things that I've learned. And one of those things is that I usually have been subservient. I usually, lately I've been talking a lot about how we've come to become executive assistants, how we've come into the support role. And my viewpoint, it's not for everybody, but my viewpoint largely is that it comes from trauma. So when we were younger, we were in these roles that we were expected to show up as more of a caretaker, somebody who puts others' needs before them, somebody who's made to navigate different scenarios and circumstances, usually with our families, right? And so that has built us into the human beings we are today, where we take jobs, where we are subservient, where we take care of other people, where people are allowed to treat us poorly, and we're okay with it. So I would say that since I've come from that background and I've had that training ingrained in me for so long, when I'm on the job, I fall more into that role, right? Now, part of the last, 3 to 5 years has been taking, and all of this is also part of my healing journey. Like, I'm not just doing this for me. The information that I bring to the community and put out there is also to help with my journey and their journey. And so it's helped give me confidence. It's helped me navigate situations and put myself into better opportunities. Trying to align myself to be around the people who do believe the way that I do, who do feel the way that I feel. But it's really difficult because you never know who you're going to support. You never know who you're going to be throwing that support behind. And your executive is how you make your living. So when I am working for somebody that is demanding me to show up in a way that doesn't necessarily represent who I am, I will do it kicking and screaming. But then I really need the community, and I really need to lean into the community, and I really need to use that part of myself to make the work part okay.
Mm.
You have to know what you're able to move forward and what you aren't. And a job is a job. And it comes down to you making an informed decision about what you're willing to put up with and what you aren't, right? So maybe that place isn't for you. But for me, I'm going, okay, does it pay my bills? Am I making the money that I need to be making? Is this where I want to be for this point in my life? The other thing is that in tech, everything changes so quickly. I mean, within a year, you could have had 3 reorgs and changed, 1 to 2 executives. So nothing stays the same. And so a lot of times I just roll with it.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting what you're saying about the trauma thing. And I think so often where we feel so uncomfortable at work is when the value system is different to our value system.
Yes,
And that's when you've got to remind yourself that this is a job,
yes,
and and ideally a career as well. But if you want it to be a career, then you're going to have to get with the program. And I feel like the whole service piece is being confused with servitude. And
right.
really, assistants are about service at their heart. Of course, they are. Most assistants have a real service heart, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in servitude. And that's a battle that I think a lot of assistants are fighting their way through.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, it gets really hard when you're supporting somebody who does not align with your values, right? And I can absolutely speak to that because I have been through that more than not. But at the end of the day, they are my boss. And if I push back on them, if I try to change the system, if, I potentially could ruin my career. They have way more power at this point in my life to have access to the people that I would go and work for, that they can talk bad about me, and then that ruins my career. So it's always being mindful of like who you're supporting, what access they have, how are they going to impact your career in the future. And this is a job. At the end of the day, this is a job. And a lot of people don't love what they do. It's like there is that idea, you work to live, you don't live to work. I mean, that is where we're supposed to think, right? Is that our whole life is not supposed to be about this job. And a lot of people are going to jobs that they don't necessarily like. So if you're in that circumstance and you're being forced to work for somebody that does not have the values that you have, I mean, you just need to decide what it's worth to you. I mean, I have had to do things that I never would do personally in my personal life, but my executive has asked me to do them, and so I do them. And that is just part of the job. And so I worry about, we hear about different cases in the media where executive assistants have done something because their executive has made them do it, and then they've been called into question legally because of
Mm.
it. Those are scary situations to me, because if I were, I mean, obviously I've never done anything to that extreme, but if my executive asked me to do something and I would say no, that does not follow my morale code, then trust me, I have been in positions where they would say, you're fired, and now you won't be able to get a career among any of these people that I'm associated with. And those are real things that happen, and especially in cutthroat industries. And so I think it's something we all need to be careful about.
Yeah, but better than ending up in jail, right?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, sure. You have to absolutely decide, like, okay, what level am I being pushed to here? Luckily I've never had anything that would wind me in jail. But, there are definitely questionable things. I've had to call people and yell at them, to get refunds, to act like my executive, to be in systems that I'm not supposed to be in that could get me fired, but my executive wants me in them, and so I have to be in them, as far as internal systems at work. I mean, there's just different things that get asked of you, and you either show up or you don't. And I think a lot of times where we see the more high level EAs is that they're willing to go above and beyond and put their executives' needs in front of whatever drama they feel that it will bring.
For sure. So listen, the other side of the main themes of your book, the first one being authenticity, the other
Yeah.
side is resilience, and you're
Yeah.
clearly resilient. I mean, you're very upfront about the fact that you have overcome addiction.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that and what you learned from that whole period.
Yeah. I mean, originally this book was going to be called The Resilient Assistant. And, they don't tell you that, when you're coming up with all these ideas for your book, there are going to be other people out there that have already thought of these ideas. And so then you're going, okay, the resilient assistant. And then somebody says, somebody has something called the resilient assistant. And you're like, oh no, I can't do that now. And then it becomes a whole thing. So it wound up being the Unstoppable EA, which I think actually wound up being the perfect title for it. But it was really important to me to share my story because I felt that there had to be other people going through similar things, whatever it is. I mean, it could be addiction with drugs, alcohol, it could be abuse being raised, whatever your red flags are. And for me, these were all those things. And luckily I overcame addiction to such a confident degree that I felt like I was able to speak about this and I was able to empower other people. Listen, we are just human beings doing our job. We're just human beings showing up for each day, showing up for what we're doing. And I wanted others to know that there is a place for them, that our lives can be messy, and it doesn't mean that there isn't options for us. And I wanted to empower people to really take a look at their lives and think of ways that they can show up differently to empower themselves. Um, I definitely feel that I got into this role based upon my past trauma. So I continued carrying trauma with me, including to become an alcoholic and an addict. And so once I had finally overcome that, I wanted to help other people overcome whatever they were going through.
So how long have you been clean?
Oh my gosh. I don't keep track anymore, but I want to say about 9 years. Probably about nine
Amazing.
years. And it feels so long ago. It didn't feel that way in the beginning, and it was really difficult. But then after like the first year, I started really getting this different high, like feeling very on top of the world, feeling very capable, feeling that I could do anything. Like I had conquered this thing that was so difficult, and so it just raised my self-esteem. It made me want more for my life, and it really set me up for where I am today. And so I just wanted other people to be able to read that and feel like there's a place for them beyond whatever they're going through.
And nothing will ever scare you as much again.
Yeah. Seriously.
For sure. All right, let's shift gears very slightly, because I do want to talk about EA Social Club, because I think it's genius. Talk to me about
Really?
how you came up
Okay.
with that idea. I love it.
It really came from a very simple place. I felt that I didn't have friends. Okay, so that was the original place that it came from. Was, I live in the city. I've been out of college for a long time. I got sober. So, all my friendships changed, all the relationships I had changed, and I became very much a hermit. COVID hit. I was very happy to be in my apartment. I am very happy to be in my apartment all the time. And so I got to this point where I just didn't really have friendships. And I was thinking, well, what is a great way to meet people? And that would be, at a cross section. And so I'm thinking, a big thing that is really missing that I've seen throughout my life is mentorship in the EA community. And here I am, I've been raising my voice because people want to see what jobs I, am putting out there that I'm seeing. And I was like, I'm going to just send a note out and I'm going to ask if anybody wants to go to dinner. And it was very vulnerable for me to do that at this time. I do want to preface by saying a lot of my confidence in this realm has been built up over time since I've done this. I was not showing up at events feeling this confident to begin with. So I really put myself out there. I've learned that I can do hard things. I've learned that I am capable. And so every time I do something that pushes me, I just remind myself I can do hard things and then I can handle it. So I sent out a note. I heard from over 200 people who wanted to go to dinner. I was like, wow, okay, this is a thing, apparently. So then I decided to do a dinner series. And so then it would be, maybe 5 or 6 just to handle the amount of people that wanted to connect and go to dinner. What I realized was that when I was meeting for these dinners, I was really enjoying it. I was developing relationships. We were talking about all the things that we were going through on a daily basis at work, the things that people don't understand or could get, the things that made me feel so isolated in my personal life that I had nobody to talk to about. And so from there, I just decided to turn it into a club. Originally, I didn't charge. Originally, it was like just show up for dinner. You had to sign up, but you just show up. But people weren't showing up. So I had 200 people signing up to go to dinners. And then, I would set a reservation for 6 people. And then I would be the only person at the table. So that's when I started charging. And because I started charging, people felt they had a commitment and then they would come to dinner. And so that's when it turned into a membership. And now we are in various cities across the US. But I want to say San Francisco and New York are the most built up cities. We've got LA, Utah, and a bunch of other places. But right now we are just really big on building up the places that we currently have. And so I'm getting ready to go to New York soon. I'm going to see Diana Brandle there. I'm hosting 2 EA Social Club events. So it's pretty exciting. It is. I just never realized that I would do that. And then I would do the book. And then I would be doing all of these speaking gigs now, so it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, it takes you in whichever direction you need it to. And, really, I think it's so interesting because most assistants would rather stick pins in their eyes rather than network. But actually, it's a very lonely role. You don't have your own department. There's usually not an administrative function. You're usually siloed. You're working across various departments. So who do you socialize with? Because really you can't share information with people who don't understand the role,
Yeah.
or maybe you've got private stuff that you can't share or whatever. So to me, getting everybody together, I would have thought that once they realized they had their own community, that would absolutely soar.
Yeah, well, you would think so. What I'm finding is that a lot of people are hesitant to join because they have a lot of insecurities, a lot of inhibitions. A lot of people are in the background lurking, but they're not actually a part of the community. So we have a ton of followers on LinkedIn for the EA Social Club. It's like 6,000 or something like that. We only at this moment probably have about 100 members, but we are only a year old, number one. Number two, now people are starting to come off the sidelines and be like, okay, I'm starting to get interested in this. I'm seeing this. There are people who have felt like this is not their community because they think that it's too raw, or whatever is being seen by the public. There are people that work at bigger companies who think this is absolutely ridiculous and why would they ever want to do something like this. But what I will tell you is that I saw a lot of toxicity happening within the workplace among executive assistants and administrative assistants. And that really shook me because I think that mentorship is greatly lacking when within roles within a company, mentorship should be a high point. Like there are other people in these roles within your company that have done these jobs and they have built best practices, and it's a shame that nobody is sharing this information and instead they're getting competitive. Well, this person's doing better than I am, my executive doesn't like that executive, so I can't be nice to that EA, or that EA is bothering me because they're too junior and they don't know enough. Well, teach them, show them, bring them to the table. And so this was a way to circumvent that and to bring people out of these environments and to show up as equals and to show up exactly as you are. There are many times when I'm at the table with my laptop working, or there are people that just come straight from the gym, or they're coming straight from working in their apartment and so they're in sweats. Like, it's more important that you get there and that you have these opportunities. The other thing that is just highly undervalued and underrated is networking. I mean, networking is just like the number one thing that you can do to elevate yourself and your career at this point in your life. And it is how you can find opportunities. It is how you can meet people. Proximity is everything. And so if there's anything that I can impart and anything that this EA Social Club is doing, it is to create a networking experience to elevate EAs.
I couldn't agree more. Part of the reason I travel so much is because I want to be on the ground. I want to be
Yeah.
talking to EAs. I want to make sure that what we're putting out there is absolutely correct and that we have our finger on the pulse. And the only way to do that is to go meet them and network with them. And when EAs network with each other, the power in that is
Isn't it amazing?
absolutely huge. Oh, totally. And they're amazing. And
Yeah.
just this weekend, I was in Belgium and I was sat with a group of maybe 30 EAs who were just supporting each other and lifting each other up and talking about opportunities that there were in the city, and talking to each other about things that were going right within their organizations and talking about things that were going wrong and sense checking whether that was okay or not. And sometimes
Yeah.
for your own equilibrium and to really bolster your own career, you need to understand how amazing you are.
Oh, 100%. And the other thing that I find is that everybody has this life that we're not aware of, right? And it is amazing the things that the EAs are doing that you don't realize that they're doing, that like is happening within their personal lives, and the initiatives that they're passionate about, and just the different goals they've had, and the different things that they've accomplished. And it's just like there are whole parts to these human beings that we just aren't aware of, and it's incredible. It's incredible to experience, and that's why I started the EA Social Club.
Love about it is that it is a social club. I mean, obviously, I am a huge advocate of training and self-development and
Right.
all that side of things. And I know that you are too. But I think that social piece of really having people that you can share
Yeah. Yeah.
lived
Yeah.
experience with is so important.
Well, and I found that there were a lot of training programs out there, and there are people that are way better at that than I would ever be. That is not my forte. And so I want to encourage people to go to those people. What I am bringing is this very, let's get together, let's nurture each other, let's talk about what we're going through, and let's be friends. I mean, we've now gotten to the point that a lot of us know each other pretty well at this point, so we can just show up as friends. And then right now we have a Slack community, so people will go in, they'll ask questions. I'm always posting jobs in there, so it's really just kind of bringing away the divisions between us and creating more of a community where people can lean in. And it's wonderful. I mean, just at this last event, we had somebody show up because she was hiring an EA. We've had, various people show up because they're looking to fill roles, and so it's a way to be seen by others. And we shouldn't underestimate that. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that's going to become more and more important, particularly in the current economic climate. I think, I mean, I would be really interested to know for you how you feel that assistants can advocate for themselves within their companies, because right now it's more important than ever before to be showing them what your value is.
Yeah. I think that it can be really difficult. I think that, it depends on the company, right? So if you're dealing with a company that's smaller, you're going to have a higher touch. If you're dealing with a company that's massive, like Salesforce, you are so far removed from everything, including recruiting, that are people going to listen to anything you have to say? A lot of it comes down to leverage, right? I know an EA who is constantly going to battle for the EAs that are in her company and herself, and she makes no leeway at all. There's nowhere that she goes with that, and she keeps continuing and continuing. But at the end of the day, they go, listen, this is your job and you have a choice. You can stay or you cannot stay. We want you to stay, but if you're going to stay, it's going to stay like this. And so it gets really difficult. I would say, lean into the people that have the most leverage, lean into the people who can make a change, and, encourage them to try and do that. I mean, again, if you're on LinkedIn, there are so many people not raising their voices, and they don't do that because their employers can see. Okay, so it's the same idea. If you're within your company and you're raising your voice, the employer knows that it's you, and then they worry they're going to lose their job. So I would say leverage the people that you can. There will always be EAs who feel more comfortable in their position and feel like they have more power and more of a voice. I have had that role happen to me more recently. And so you'll see I'm raising my voice even more. But it becomes difficult, like a lot of the trauma stuff I talk about lately. I worry, now it's a different idea, but I worry about my mother because a lot of that trauma and all that trauma comes from my mother. So she's going to be seeing my post, she's going to be reading it, and she's going to be deciphering that it's about her. So now take that for the workforce. The workforce is reading your posts, they see that you're advocating, and they're deciphering that you are going against them. So it's the same idea, different worlds, and it's difficult for us to speak up for ourselves when we know that we could lose in the end, essentially.
Agreed. I think I'm very lucky to work for myself and to be
Yes,
able to say exactly what I think, because I'm not
yes,
reporting to anybody but me. And I really mean that. I'm not saying that glibly. I truly do feel very blessed that I'm in a position where I can just say what I want.
yeah,
But very hard. I know that one of the other things you talk about a lot is owning your worth.
yes,
And that isn't necessarily connected to speaking up. Talk to me about that.
yeah. I think for a long time, I didn't feel that I was worthy enough, right? I wasn't worthy enough for love. I wasn't worthy enough to be treated well. I wasn't a worthy human being. And so I think, showing up for ourselves, stepping into our power, realizing that, we aren't just women. I think for especially, and I'm not sure what it was like in London, and I'm not sure, but I'm sure you can relate to this a bit, is that I was raised in a culture where women were not so much at the forefront. And so we did not really have voices. And, I was raised by my mother that I wasn't allowed to have a voice. And so part of becoming sober, part of stepping into what I've been stepping into now has been owning my power. Listen, we have one life. We are the CEOs of our life. I mean, we spend so much time working, we spend so much time worrying about everybody else, but we have one life and it's our life. And I think we get really lost in everything that we're doing for everybody else that we forget to show up for ourselves and step into our power for ourselves and realizing that we're the CEO of our own lives. I mean, we see this so much in all of the compromises that people make in society and on the day to day, right? And whether that is being a parent and being the person who is solely taking care of the children, whether that's working full time and taking care of the family. I mean, there are just so many things that are put onto us as women where we're expected to show up differently, expected to show up more exceptional. And I think that it's important that we realize that we have a life, we have power in our decisions, and we get to decide what we want. And taking control of that. There are things you will not be able to control, but stepping into what you can control and realizing that you play a part in that. Life isn't happening necessarily to you. Maggie says this all the time. Life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And you have to show up for that. And when I say Maggie, I mean Maggie Jacobs. You have to show up for that and step into that, and participate. You have to participate in your life. So that's what I'm trying to convey is like show up for yourself and just love yourself more than you love anything else in this life.
So fundamental and so important, and so not something that a lot of people do.
Yeah, another thing Maggie says is that it's something like you are the sum of the 5 people that you spend your time with. And it's very, very powerful because I can tell you from being someone who didn't really network to somebody who has networked and has been able to shape decide who I want to be around. So you network, you decide who are the people that I like that I'm networking with. Okay, these are the people that I want to spend my time with. It is amazing. Like those people will elevate you. They will help you to see the belief in yourself that you didn't think was there. Like they will encourage you, they will inspire you. And those are the people that you want to surround your life with.
Yeah, I call them my board of directors.
Yes.
And they're
I
from
love
all
it.
sorts of different areas of my life. I have different members of my board for different things in my life. And some are career and some are personal and some are emotional. But when they come together, they are the most powerful people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's so important. But until you have that, you have no idea what you were missing. And I want people to realize, like, go for that, be a part of that, like, do that for yourself. Give yourself the gift of having a circle that will praise and speak about you when you're not in the room.
So authenticity and resilience and knowing your worth. If you could leave all the assistants out there that are listening to this with one truth from Unstoppable EA, what would that be, Becky?
It would be that you are worth more than anybody has let you believe that you are. That you are so capable, that you can do hard things, and that you can be unstoppable. We all are going through so many things in our lives, and that doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to continue showing up for yours. And so, ironically, the last chapter of the Unstoppable EA is my favorite chapter because it's called Becoming Unstoppable. So if you read nothing else, read that chapter. And then the final thing is that always negotiate. That is something that I can give you as real actionable advice to do, regardless of where you're at. Always negotiate and know your worth because you are so important. This is your one life and you deserve all that you can.
Fantastic. And for you, what is next for you? Are you going to do more writing? Are you going to do more community building? What do you see your impact being going from here?
Well, I'll tell you, I like writing for a LinkedIn. I like writing posts, but I do not want to write a book again. And if I do, it will be a very, 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 very long time. That was not a fun process. And then all the judgment, I'm still human. There's so much judgment that comes out of that. But next for me is, really digging in on keynote speaking, really digging in and leaning in on the community. I really want to be able to really have more time with people. And so hopefully eventually I will do this full time. But right now I work and I do it all. So, and then I'm always, of course, building the community. And then I just started a recruiting arm. And basically, it is a concierge recruiting service that I match executives exactly with people from my community that would be an incredible fit for them, taking out the middleman and making it a fraction of the cost. So those are the things that I'm working on right now.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure that the audience will agree that we hope that we see an awful lot more of you, and you're only just going to become more powerful. So thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
This has been wonderful. Really loved talking to you, Becky. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a great experience.